Hello, I'm Annette and welcome to the 51%, a show about women reshaping our world. Coming up in this special program, we focus on women's reproductive health. We head to Laos, where it's a bumpy road in more ways than one, as the UN rolls out a family planning program in one of the country's remotest districts. Plus, we talk to one of Washington's leading advocates on why family planning needs to be a global priority. And also a report from Uganda about the health consequences of giving birth at an early age. But we begin in Laos, whose population is more than 6 million people, making it one of the lowest population densities in Southeast Asia. Yet it has more than doubled in the last 35 years, placing a strain on a country with limited infrastructure. The emphasis is now on introducing family planning to as many areas as is possible. My colleague Aurore Dupuis and I headed to one such village, Lulang, a tiny remote community in the south of the country, and as you'll see, it's far from being an easy task. Bonton Kumfumar is a man on a mission. The 56-year-old former army medic is in charge of delivering contraception to families in one of the poorest and remotest regions in southern Laos. It's part of a UN population fund program. The roads are bad at the best of times, even now during the dry season. And today he's visiting the Kongwan family.
What pill would you like? This one or that one? You can also choose between a condom, diaphragm or an injection.
The young couple only have 3 children, all of whom were born in this tiny hut with no medical assistance, and they don't want any more.
For the kids' health, it's better to space out the births, just like him and his brother. They were born 2 or 3 years apart. Look, the little one is in good shape.
Yet it's still very much a patriarchal culture, and once again, Bonton has to take into account the male ego.
I don't use condoms. It's my wife who takes the pill.
So you're not doing anything?
No, it's up to my wife to take it.
We only have a small rice paddy, and there's not enough already to feed us all. I want my kids to continue studying, to become good people, and to be able to read and write.
Bonton is one of 74 volunteers in the region, yet only one of them is a woman. While the UN is working hard to rectify this, there's also recognition that having local male leaders on board makes it easier to convince villagers to sign up, especially when 60% of the population is aged under 24 and 82% give birth without assistance.
I'm so happy to do this job. My aim is to see these kids in good health. I want people to respect family planning, and most of all, I want it to be successful.
While nearly 80% of the population here in Laos still live in the country, more and more people are beginning to exchange village life for city life. However, spiritual traditions still remain strong, particularly those relating to pregnancy and childbirth. And that is a problem when you want to reduce maternal mortality rates. The majority of people in Laos are Buddhists, but belief in animal spirits are also present, especially among its ethnic minorities. And it's these traditions that lead some to believe that women are unclean during childbirth.
As a result, often these communities send their pregnant women out to the forest or to a hut that they have built for a specific purpose to have their babies, to deliver the baby. Sometimes they do it all by themselves, and that could, in most often, it could be fatal, because if there are complications, there is no help.
These are the images that the government in Laos wants the world to see, a country seeking to modernise. But the pressure is now on for the government to ensure everybody has access to contraception if future generations are indeed to benefit from economic prosperity. And that report was filmed by Aurore Dupuis. And joining me now from Washington DC is Suzanne Ehlers, the President of Population Action International, an advocacy organisation for women's reproductive health. Suzanne, thank you so much for your time. As we saw there, the intentions are often honourable, with many developing nations wanting to roll out family planning programs, but it can also be a massive logistical challenge. What sort of commitment is required by all parties to make it work?
Well, we've often said that there's really no hope for services without supplies. And so while we build demand for these issues within the developing world, and certainly women demand these services all the time, you have to connect the dots on the supplies. You've got to have the essential medical sort of equipment there, if you will. And that takes a different level of government commitment, and it takes advocacy groups at the field level to really understand sometimes more technical and more arcane issues of logistics and procurement. And PAI works with a lot of those partners to help them see how central this issue of supplies and availability of contraceptive methods is to the larger goals they have around women equality and contraceptive access.
And as we also found in Laos, men are key partners in having on board, especially when it comes to sort of operating within conservative societies.
You know, male involvement has been, it's been a key concern of this issue of family planning and contraception for a long time. And I'll tell you, we haven't really solved it yet. We still have many places where reproductive health and rights is considered sort of the woman's domain. We've got to fix that. We've got to engage young men so that they're growing up in an environment where they see women differently as equal partners, and that they see reproductive health as a family issue and one that they have to take on as a joint decision-making process with their partners and their wives. We also have to not be afraid of some of the kind of the early cultural barriers to get past, and to really show how increasing access to contraception for a family, essentially for a woman, but for a family, makes for healthier kids, makes for a more economically productive family, makes for a healthier community overall. And I think that's a way to open the door to male involvement from that angle that has worked in a number of places. I just think we need to start doing it more often and earlier in a lot of places.
Do you feel that there is not enough global commitment to ensure that family planning is available to all and sundry?
I do think that there is a lack of overall global commitment. We've seen a resurgence in recent years, certainly, with some really key champions, both governments, both in the developed world and in the developing world, from private donors like the Melinda Gates Foundation, Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation. Melinda has been an extraordinary champion for this issue. We certainly have groups like PAI and our partners that have long been sort of advocating for this as a central piece of economic development and international development. And yet we still seem somehow to not connect all the dots in terms of getting the money to the field that's needed to really ensure that the 200 million plus women who want to space their families have the ability and the tools necessary to do so.
And it is essential for women's rights, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I'm often asked, you know, how did you get into this work? What was your big break as an advocate for women's equality and as a feminist? And people say you went to a great university in the United States, or you must have had wonderful mentors. And I say, no, I actually had reproductive health and rights secured for me at an early age so that I could finish secondary school, that I could go on to a great university, that I could be a part of the paid workforce in my country. I mean, there's so much that hinges on whether or not a woman has that essential fundamental control over her own reproductive health and destiny that I think underpins so many other aspects of women's empowerment that we overlook it because it's so obvious in some ways. I feel like it's absolutely the linchpin.
Suzanne, I want to come back to you in a moment, but first of all, take a look at a direct consequence in countries where access to family planning is an issue, and as a result leads to the case of some very young mothers giving birth without medical assistance. It can often lead to a condition known as a fistula. It's a treatable condition, with the UN General Assembly having recently adopted a resolution calling for an increased action to end the problem. This next report is from Uganda, which is said to have the third highest rate in the world.
A urine tube leading to a plastic bag. Grace Anna has been incontinent for the past 9 years. Like most women here, this mother of 3 has a condition called obstetric fistula. There's a hole between her bladder and her vagina that was caused when she gave birth to a stillborn baby.
I don't even go anywhere, even in church, even where people are. I don't go because of this disease. I fear that people can laugh at me.
Grace Anna has already had several operations, but so far no treatment has been successful. There are only 4 fistula specialists in Uganda, a worrying fact for the 19 million girls and women there.
Doctors are not enough for the country, so these women deliver from they are deep in the villages without any medical person, so they end up getting the problems.
On average, 16 Ugandan women die every day due to childbirth complications. But fistula cases can actually be repaired 90% of the time.
We don't know how many women exactly live with fistula. It's a disease that's often hidden. Most women don't know that it's curable and that they can get surgery for it.
For the UN, it's urgent to provide more information to women regarding fistula, which can potentially lead to infertility.
Suzanne, as we just saw there, this is one of the many health problems that often arise when women don't have access to family planning services.
You know, it's what's important to know about fistula, and what a powerful piece, is that it can happen to any woman anywhere. The reason we don't see it happening in so many places in the world is because women have access to quality information, supplies, services. They're not put into early and forced marriages. The places where fistula is on the rise and is such an incredible tragedy are places where girls are married at way too early an age, already violating their human rights. And then, of course, they're impregnated, unintended or not, within the context of marriage, and their bodies are simply anatomically not ready to deliver. And so then in these remote places, like in Uganda, where your story is from, you have no skilled birth attendants. And so these women are laboring through birth, sometimes for days on end, which of course then causes a fistula that, as you see, can absolutely destroy a woman's life, puts her on the sidelines for years from her church, her community, even her family, who will ostracize her. So for me, the message there is prevention. Yes, fistula can be treated, but more easily than that, it can be prevented in the first place, which is why we don't see it as a problem in countries like the United States and France often.
Suzanne Ehlers, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. And that's it for now. If you'd like to comment on what you've just seen, you can head to our Facebook page. That's France 24, full stop the 51%, or do send us a tweet at _51%. Thanks for your feedback so far, and please keep those comments coming in. Until our next program, bye for now.